Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of On Point on this beautiful Sunday, March the 21st, 2021. We have a great show for you. We've been out for a while. I'm bringing greetings from Liberia. I just returned and I had a great time. Liberia is very sweet and ready for you. We have a great show. We're going to be discussing issues of interest to you, national and international. I have with me a great personality, Mrs. Aminata K. Jalaba, an astute woman of education and intellect. She's going to be discussing issues affecting women in Islam, their space in leadership, and so forth. She's a woman of a lot of opinion to be backed up by verses within the Quran and her own trainings and her teachings and her upbringing. We are going to be discussing issues in Liberia and some of those issues that interest you as well. On our list today, we're going to be talking about Mo Ali and the government of Liberia. We are going to be talking about a six-county tour. The president was in six counties, including the Southeast. We're going to be talking about the EU ambassador to Liberia and the EU's contribution to Liberia's development. We are going to be talking about the Brani Samakaz issue or the Brani Samakaz saga. We are also going to be discussing political violence in Liberia. We saw the attack on the NEC and the Associated Justice Nami's residents. And we are going to be talking about the death of one of the most progressive presidents on the continent of the United Africa. We are talking about the late Magufuli of Tanzania and the subsequent elevation of the vice president, Samai, to the presidency being a Muslim woman. What does that do to the Muslim landscape or religion of male domination? What is her place? How does the religion deal with that? We are going to be getting some insight from Ms. Jalaba. So let's get started. Let's start with Ms. Jalaba introducing herself. Ms. Jalaba, welcome. I know this is your first time on Point or focus on Liberia. Could you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, thank you very much. Highly appreciative of being on the program today. I'm Ms. Aminata Jalaba. I graduated from the AME University with a degree in sociology, and I also graduated from the Muslim Convert Education Program in Liberia, and served as the financial secretary for the Liberian Muslim Women for Peace. And I'm a Muslim, and I love my religion. And like you said, we're going to be discussing the position of a woman being a leader in Islam. I'm ready for that.
Thank you very much. As you can see, she's well versed and well educated and trained to the subject matter. Now let's go to Mo Ali. The situation in Liberia calls for the attention of everyone, including yourself, every peace-loving Liberian. We have been through civil wars. We have been through deprivation. We have been through torture. And today, Liberia was or is in the place of being called one of the fastest developing countries based on the present administration's proper agenda for prosperity. Dr. George Mannen Weah. George Mannen Weah came to power, obviously, succeeding Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. And government being government of continuity, there are a lot of projects that Mrs. Sirleaf started that Dr. George Weah completed or in the process of completing. And in the process, he has many other projects of his own and his trademark of road connectivity. So we are going to begin with that by saying, if all of these things are true and we are all patriotic Liberians, why is it that some Liberians are still beating the war drum? Some Liberians are still calling for violence. So we're going to be discussing that. And one of the things we want to discuss, let's go directly to Front Page Africa based on their analysis and as it was printed. It said the Liberian police have cited Mr. Mo Ali, the National General Secretary of the former ruling party, for questioning over a Facebook post, which they may link to the recent acid attack on the home of Associate Justice Joseph Nangbe and the headquarters of the National Elections Commission. So while we will be discussing these issues, my partner, Edward Doe, is out today, attending to some family matters. He will be back next Sunday. So we are going to be digging a little deeper. We are going to be asking, why is it that when people make these inflammatory remarks in person, in media or in print, and when they are incited, and then at some point, the Secretary of the State cite them for clarity. Why is it that the general public or some folks in the general public find that to be repugnant? According to the UPP, the UP release here, they find that the chairman, the former Secretary General, should not be cited by the National Police because he had not committed any crime. But the police never said he committed a crime. To establish the fact, the security sector of Liberia decided to invite people of interest. And Mo Ali is a person of interest. Mo Ali decided not to attend the meeting. Instead, he sent his lawyer. The lawyer said at first that Mo Ali was on his way. And when Mo Ali never showed, he said there is no reason for Mo Ali to show up because Mo Ali has not committed any crime. So, Ms. Jalaba, you being a student of political science, geopolitics, what would be your taking? What would be your understanding of why an individual that have made a post? I know you have not been privy to the entire post here, but I have the post here. He posted on his Facebook and social media page, and he said, we know what the ploy is. And basically, if you continue what you are doing at NEC, you will see what the end result will be. Subsequent to that, a petrol bomb was thrown at the Associate Justice's home. The NEC, the Elections Commission building was firebombed and destroyed. I heard to the tune of about 45,000 are in damage. What is your take on the issue in Liberia?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Gayman. With those posts and then comments that Mo Ali made, those comments have the propensity of, actually disturbing and then causing violence in the country. So I think he should have attended the call and go and actually explain himself, because there is no reason for which he would refuse to go for the call if there was no other motives. So his lawyer being the lawyer, according to what I heard, I listened to the lawyer saying that Mo Ali was on his way. And then later on, he presented a letter that Mo Ali was not well. So it's like he's trying to avoid going to answer to the call because he has something that he doesn't want. Maybe he doesn't want to get arrested for. Because in all honesty, being a law-abiding citizen, if you come out and incite the public, there are other people out there who, he has his followers, that he may not directly go out and then execute what he said, but somebody else might have read his post and then decided to do what his post was saying. So that's how I look at it.
Well, we are going to leave time between our talks for comments. And we want the audience to send in their comments, whether you are pro or anti-government, it doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. But the issue here is national security. Mm-hmm. And we say there is a link between actors in Liberia on national security issues. For instance, Lofa County District Number 1, Francis Yumlin, I think his name is, he's in one of his interview on Front Page Africa and OKFM, he said if Brandon Samaka is not certificated, and if that position for some reason is declared vacant, then the folks of Lofa County are going to make the entire Liberian government vacant. That means the president, the vice president, and the executive by force. So he is appealing to Lofians to rise up and basically overthrow the government. So he also was cited by national security as a sitting lawmaker to threaten the overthrow of his own government by force. We think the NSA and the Liberian police have the right and the authority to question anyone who threatens the state, anyone, whether by means of verbal or written or in print, audio or visual, that person has to be cited for clarification. So, Ms. Jalaba, we understand Mo Ali is a former Secretary General of the Unity Party and also a Muslim brother. He is one of those who at some point believe that there are room in the Quran for violence, that if what he perceived as democratic tenets are not carried out, that they can take matters into their own hands. And as you can see, there are those who are out there who see Islam or people of the Islamic faith being easily converted to violence, which I know some of you have told us that that's not true. People with evil minds and evil ways use some of these events and tactical or cherry pick the Quran or the Bible to settle their own score. Can you throw a little light on that for me?
Definitely. You correctly mentioned that Mo Ali is a Muslim brother, and Islam speaks against violence of any kind. And Islam says, if even a slave is made a leader over you, that slave has to be given his respect until his tenure is over. So for no reason, I would want anybody to say he's like linking his attitude to Islam. No, Islam speaks against violence, and Islam asks every citizen to be respectful of the government. As long as you are in that land, you follow the laws of the land and you obey the leader of the land. That's what Islam says. So, I mean, I don't see how Mo Ali's attitude in any way is going to get connected to his religious values. It shouldn't be, and it shouldn't happen. He's going political in his own way, and I don't know if they have something else against the government. It should be for other reasons, but not Islamic reasons.
Well, for those of us who have a little inclination, a little insight of religious values and teaching, we know that people use these attitudes or these happenings or social issues to carry out their own will, and then find a passage in the Bible or in the scripture, one out of a millions of verses, and say, this justifies our means. But going back to Mo Ali, the Unity Party also came up with another release today saying, by the government asking Mr. Mo Ali to a meeting is tantamount to witch hunt and intimidation. I don't know whether in your own political view, because when you were in Liberia, I understand that you were an activist and you did a lot of work in working with children and women to educate them. Would this be considered, if you were called in to make some clarification on statement you made, would that be considered intimidation by any means?
That shouldn't be considered as any form of intimidation. I mean, he's subject to the laws of the country, in my view. In as much as he went out there and then he spoke out and then he posted things that go contrary to the peace of the entire nation, I mean, he's subject to whatever laws the nation has, and he should turn in himself and go and answer the questions.
Excellent. Well, we have spent a little more time on this particular topic, so can we move on to the next topic here? We are seeing here a brilliant tour that just happened in Liberia. The president decided that Monrovia is not Liberia, and that he was going to tour all 15 counties. And what he did was he began with the 6 counties, mostly in the southeast, but he began with Bond County, Nima County, Maryland, Grand Cru, River G. Now I have a writing here from Nima County. There is a place in Nima County called B. As part of the President National Tour, for the first time in 173 years, this place is so remote. He said the president and his entourage took 10 hours drive to get to this place. And the citizens were so ecstatic that a president of a nation will visit them. I know you were maybe born in Montserrat, but your folks may be from where?
Cape Mount.
Your folks are from Cape Mount.
Mm-hmm.
Have you visited every part of Cape Mount, or what part of Cape Mount have you visited?
My father is from a place called Jenewene, and my mother is from Tierney, and I visited Jenewene and Tierney. I also visited Robert Sports, and I passed through Cape Mount to go towards Sierra Leone as well. So I visited, a lot of areas around Cape Mount.
I don't know whether you have any history of anything in your file that says that any of the Liberian presidents have been to either Jenewene or Tierney, your mother's hometown.
I don't want to say what I don't remember, no. But I believe that I'm sure president in the past have gone there, because the president Talbot wife she was my father's auntie, and she was from Cape Mount. So, and my grandfather married her out to Talbot. So I'm sure Talbot might have gone Cape Mount to get his wife.
But it could have been prior to him being president.
I can authenticate that, but his wife is from Cape Mount.
Yes, but that will also happen prior to him being president. He didn't marry her when he became president. Okay,
and then maybe not on a government visit or visit for the country, like you are saying. Like
what I'm getting at here is the gravity and the importance of the presidential visit in a very remote town where people feel neglected. They have never been before. Nobody, not even sometimes they don't see the senator, but for the president to show up, to identify with them, and to say Liberia is not Monrovia, and you are also entitled to the resources, the benefits of the resources of this country. I think it says a whole lot about who this president is and what he means when he says pro-poor. Your take.
Okay, yes. I'm not a seditious, but from the time this president took over, it's like, the country, or like you have a sickness. You don't have to like the doctor. You don't have to know the doctor. As long as he's giving you the kind of treatment you want, that's the doctor you're going to root for. So I've been following the progress of this president since he took over, even though I'm not in the country. But from what I see, he's been going from, county to county. He lighted some county I saw. It's just astounding. For the past 173 years, we didn't hear any such thing from any of our presidents in Liberia. Even my own president, she was there. We didn't see anything that, the natives can feel and feel that, oh yes, this is our country and we are entitled. No, I didn't see that. And I must commend this president for that. He's a Liberian, and I think he has the country at heart. I don't have to belong to his party to give him his flower while he's alive. For what he's doing exceedingly well for the country, in my view, at this point in time.
Thank you very much. And to piggyback on that, I'm looking at some pictures here from Southtown territory. Southtown, which is part of Grand Cru now. And I'm looking at the pictures, the beaches, the waterways, the quality of the water, the turquoise looking water for those of us who live in Florida, when you go to the Bahamas or you go to, we see these kinds of quality of beaches and waterways, and to see that Liberia has that quality of lifestyle right within our backyard, it tells me that the proper agenda for prosperity, especially the road connectivity, I think is the hallmark, and that would be the signature series of Mr. President George Weah, because it's going to benefit all Liberians. We can leave Monrovia and go to Southtown and go to Kipamas and go to Grand Cru, anywhere in Grand Cru. So thank you very much for your thought. Now we are going to pivot to Brownie Samukai. Another hot topic in Liberia is Brownie Samukai. Brownie Samukai is a convicted felon. The Liberian Constitution is very clear. A convicted felon, especially a crime committed in the line of work. Anyone that is found guilty or charged and found guilty of felony in your line of work, that person is not fit to take leadership until whatever restitution is made, that the person served their time and given, I think it's 3 or 5 year term before the person can enter politics. Brandon Samukai was convicted for theft and misuse of proper property in the mismanagement of the pension funds for our soldiers. He was convicted in the lower court. He appealed to the Supreme Court. While the appeal was being looked at, the Supreme Court agreed that until his appeal was settled, he can run. And he did run and win. The same Supreme Court issued the finding, which is final in our land, that the lower court did make the right decision by convicting Brownie Samukai. He is a convicted felon. Now the law reverts to the Constitution. The law, the penal code, Liberian penal code says anyone that is convicted of a felony and the crime committed within or on the job in the line of work, that person is not fit for public office. So the NEC and the administration are saying he should not be certificated. The folks from the United Party and Lufin, and some Lufins are saying the Supreme Court had ordered him or allowed him to run, so it doesn't matter whether he committed a crime, he should be certificated. This is where we are. So, Ms. Jalaba, do you have a say, do you have an opinion on the Samukai based on the Constitution, based on what has happened and what you've been observing?
Yeah, from what you just explained to me, because I did not really follow the Samukai case, but the Constitution being a Constitution, and the Constitution was in existence, and I mean, NEC knew exactly what the Constitution says. Why did they allow Samukai to run? Because the people spoke. The people chose him. They voted for him. And now they come back to say they cannot certificate him. I want to question NEC in that instant as well. And because if we know him to be what he did, according to the law, if he was considered a felony, if he took the ex-combatant wife's money, and I mean, why did they even allow him?
Well, you see, it's a constitutional issue, it's a legal issue. The National Elections Commission cannot stop anybody from running if that person has not been convicted of a felony.
Okay.
Even if the person is convicted in the lower court and the person appealed to the Supreme Court, the highest court, until the highest court make a decision, that person is still entitled to all the rights. So the NEC had the right to allow him to run, pending the decision from the highest court. And the highest court came back and affirmed the lower court position that yes, he's a felon. So then the NEC is saying now, we were waiting on the Supreme Court decision. While the Supreme Court decision was in effect, while they were being looked at, you still were entitled to all your rights. But now that the Supreme Court have affirmed the decision that was made prior to you running, we are going back to that decision, the original decision. That should actually make you null and void that particular day you should not have. Because if he had not appealed, he wouldn't have been allowed to, the NEC would not have allowed him to compete. But because he appealed, he actually circumvented that particular part of the NEC rules. So now that the Supreme Court has ruled, it is time for Brandon Samukai to withdraw his name and apologize to the Liberian people and let the Lofian decide who else they want. But let's move on to the next topic here. It is something that I know, this is why we brought you here.
This is actually a slippery slope if you look at it, because NEC knew that there was a huge question mark over Brandon Samukai at the point in time. So I don't know. I think, in my view, he should have been put on a hold instead of allowing this whole thing, giving him permission to go ahead and let the people choose. The Liberian people have spoken. They took their leader. They voted for him. So I mean, NEC, in collaboration with the Supreme Court and the law, they are not trying to create something, because it is the Liberian people now that are going to grieve, because Brandon Samukai was put out there and then they allowed them to vote for him. Well, so actually they have to revisit that and see how best they can put the situation in a way, make the Liberian people to understand why it went the way. For me, I've just understood from your explanation, but the laymen are there, they may not understand this. Well, and like, you know, they say you want to hide something from the people, put it in book. Majority of the Liberian people, they wouldn't read the Constitution and they don't know the technicality in this whole thing. So based on this technicality, it looks like, well, you said, we can move on, but
yeah, well, the law is the law, and there's no one above the law, as you can see in these United States. Mm-hmm. The governor of New York, Governor Cuomo, has been accused by committing what some people consider to be crime, but until the final judgment is made by a court, and that judgment is made, he is still entitled to all his rights. Yeah. Some are asking him to resign, but he's not going to resign because he has not been convicted of any crime. And all of these things are still allegations. So until then, he will be carrying on his duty.
Excuse me, Mr. Gayman. In the case of Governor Cuomo, he's already the governor. Mm-hmm. So he's still in power, and then until he can be proved. But in the case of Samukai, I mean, it was pending. He had this case pending. The Supreme Court had not yet, let him off the hook. So if NEC allowed him, because he had all his right, if NEC was skeptic, I don't want to say skeptical, the clarity was not out there, wasn't proven. Now he has been voted, he has won, and then Supreme Court come out to say he's guilty. So how do the Liberian people get to understand that he was in that state of limbo when they voted for him, and now it is clear that he's, I think that's an issue that has to be clarified. There should be a lot of talk shows on the Liberian radio station to educate the Liberian people on why NEC should not certificate him. In the absence of that, there's going to be a lot of back and forward. That's how I think.
Well, and we appreciate your thinking on that, but the way the Liberian Penal Code is written and the way the Liberian election law is written, that's just how it is. A person applies to run. If that person is convicted in a lower court and the person appeals, the person is still entitled to the right until the Supreme Court makes that decision. When that decision is made, they will go back to status quo, and that's where they are. So let's move on.
And let the Liberian people let them have talk shows for the Liberian people to get to know that this is the situation. That's my take on it. Because if the Liberian people don't get to understand this aspect of it, that's where the issue is going to be in the country, which it shouldn't be happening. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now let's go to the actual reason why we invited you here.
Okay.
We lost one of our most progressive president on the continent of Africa in Magufuli. Magufuli is a he was a very popular president in Tanzania, but also very controversial. He was one of those that continued to deny the existence of the virus in his country. He was one of those who said that the virus was not in the country, and they came out with all kinds of some herbal solution to what he believed to be what's happening in his country. And there are a report that he contracted the virus and died. Now that Magufuli have died, he was very progressive in his thinking, in his politics. When he ran, he was brave enough to go against the wind, and he chose a woman as his vice president. Not only that, but a woman of the opposite faith. He knew that she was capable. She was brilliant. She understands the subject matter. She's a woman of substance. He picked her despite her religious upbringing, her religious understanding. Now, unfortunately for him, he was able to succumb to the virus. He died, and subsequently, the sister has been elevated, sworn in as the first president of first female president of Tanzania of the Islamic faith. Now, there's a lot of talks around about men in the Islamic faith standing behind her, taking orders from her, understanding her power. What does the Quran say, and what tradition says, and what the culture says about what's happening here?
Thank you very much for that question. The Quran encouraged women as well as men, to be as ambitious as they can. There is nothing wrong with a woman becoming a head of state in Islam. The Quran talks about the Queen of Sheba and how she ruled a vast territory in Yemen. The Quran speaks about a lot of other women that were leaders. So this is not a new thing in Islam that a woman will become a leader or a president. No. And you talk about a culture. A lot of people have their culture. They sometimes bring it into Islam. But if you talk about Islam as pure Islam, the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet that he left with us, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a woman becoming a leader and a head of state. And we can see that there are a lot of Muslim women who are even doing better jobs than men.
Well, one of the things that, and I think I have my nephew who is at the Catholic University in Liberia doing electrical engineering, and he practices both faiths, but he mostly came out as a young man in the Islamic faith, and we discussed family issues, and his issue was that the Christian girl that he was dating did not want to conform. She was too opinionated. She wouldn't listen to him. She has her own view on everything, and he said, according to Islam, that's been disrespectful to your husband, so he doesn't think that that particular relationship is going to last. So just know, is that culture, or is that something within Islam that a woman should be subjugated to the man's devices?
That's not Islam. That's not Islam in any way. The Muslim woman has the same right as the Muslim man. And in fact, she has a lot of privileges. There is nowhere in Islam where it says the woman should be subject to the man in the manner in which he's speaking. No, that's not Islam. And I can give you a story about look at in Sudan in 1960. We talk about this lady, Saudi Al-Fatiha. During the 1960s, She was very active in the protest against the leftists in Sudan. She shouted slogan while being carried by the males demonstrator. She led a procession, and she also, she called people to actions. She was seated on a chair that was placed on top of the heads of the men. That's a country that I will tell you 99 point something percent, they are all Muslims. And they allowed this Muslim lady to go, and then she headed the group. And they took over. So there is no way in Islam it says the woman should be, subject to the men. No. Men
so
and women.
where is this myth coming from? Where I shouldn't say myth, because I'm from Liberia and I have visited a lot of Muslim homes, Islamic homes. In fact, just recently, before they began to send the girls to school and stuff of that nature, are you telling me that these are culture that have been imposed and not part of the Quran?
It's not Islam. Islam says seek education from the cradle to the grave. That goes for both the Muslim male and the Muslim female. If you see men not sending their daughters to school, that's something that is being practiced in their culture. It is not the religion. The religion encourages every Muslim, male or female, to seek education from the cradle to the grave, to engage in public services, and to work for the community and the country in which they live, even beyond. So there is no way that, you will say the woman is a Muslim, but then you denied her the rights that Islam gave to her. No. But people in their culture, they bring their culture practices into the religion, and then over a period of time, they condition the women to believe that that's Islam. And not sending their daughters to school even make it worse, because if the woman cannot read and write, how can she pick the Quran or the Hadith and read and say, no, you've told me this thing, but this is what I read. This is what Islam says. There's a whole chapter in the Quran called the chapter of women. So I can tell you categorically that Islam does not subject the woman to the men. No.
Okay,
we got the two wings of the bird. They need each other to survive. He has to give her the same respect that she gives to him. And in the eyes of God, both of them are equal. Spiritually, they are equal.
Okay. Ms. Jalaba, I know this could be a whole different topic at some point for a whole hour. Will you be available at some point to come back here and on Focus on Liberia on our parent show and on point to actually discuss this in depth and see how we got to where we are, where men, Muslim men or some Muslim men believe that absolutely they have absolute power over women and that a woman has no place. And then we will delve into maybe domestic violence and things that they consider mercy killing and all of those stuff. Will you be available at some point, make time to come back on our show?
Yes, I will avail myself.
Thank you very much. Now, this is the period where we usually turn to comments. If there are any comments, Control, do we have any comments? Do we have any questions before we move on? Okay, we have Ms. Cecilia Logan. Good evening, my peace-loving Liberian people. Peace. Great. Cecilia, again, thank you very much, madam. God bless you.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Peter White. Joseph Walker knew this man was a criminal. Why he told the people of Lofa to vote for this man as a senator. Sister, can you please elaborate on that?
Well, I don't want to speak for Joseph Boakai because person is saying Joseph Boakai knew the guy was a criminal and why he voted for him. You already said that the case of Brandon Samokai was pending, and until he was convicted, he had all of his rights attached to him. And it was during that period that Joseph Boakai voted for him. So nobody would have held Brandon Samokai to this crime until he was convicted of it. That's my take on it.
Well, I think Mr. White has a point. As you can see here in these United States, Governor Cuomo is in trouble. He has not been convicted, but everybody in the Democratic Party, from the White House all the way down, they are asking him to step down because his behavior is tantamount. It tarnishes the reputation of the chair for which he's actually where he sits the office. So this is what they are talking about. Dr. Joseph Boyka being an ambassador, being vice president, being a man of knowledge that understands jurisprudence, understands the Liberian Constitution, should have told Brandon Samika, this thing is not going to end well, based on my experience, 42 years in government. Yeah, next comment, please.
So if NEC gave the go ahead to Brandon Samika to take part in the election, why will other people go against it? Because that means to say he wasn't clear under the Constitution, but he had his rights.
Well,
we're gonna keep going in cycle if we look at it from that angle.
Well, okay, let's go to Mr. Cephas here. He said this Brandon Samika case is a tricky issue, and it points out some of the people our Constitution has.
Yes.
In our Constitution has been amended to prohibit and allow criminal or citizens to form contesting for public office until after the court verdict. Just what you have said, maybe the Constitution needs to be, Ralph, thank you very much. Maybe the Constitution needs to be revisited, and these things have to be clear, but they are so vague. Can you read the next one, Jalaba, if you can see it?
Then you haven't read your book well. That's what I see.
Well, I don't know what book he's talking about. He said, go say that in the Islamic world. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's attacking what you said about women's right. Go ahead, respond to that real quick.
Islam has not said that women should be subjected to men, but it has been an opposite in their cultural practices. Somebody else, Raf is saying something. I don't know whether he's the same one I spoke first. He said, Islam has not said women should be subjected to men, but it has been an opposite in their cultural practices.
And you said you addressed that earlier, that if you wanted to go by what Islam or the Quran said, this shouldn't happen.
No.
But then when you look at the home of Islam, when you go to Saudi Arabia, you have some of the worst practices, Wahhabism and all of that, where I think somewhere on the net today we saw where there was some argument and counter argument against men who were former Muslims, former Christian, where they are talking about men subjecting women to cover themselves from head to toe. And the Islamic guy was saying that because women will tempt men, that is the objective of asking the women to dress from head to toe, because whenever you expose your body or any part of your body, you are tempting men. And then the other gentleman came back and said, oh yes, so if men are so weak, why they themselves did not cover up, but instead impose their will on women? So this is what we are talking about here when you talk about it is not what the scripture says, but it's what the practices and the culture want to impose on the people.
Islam asks women to dress modestly, and Islam also asks the men to lower their gazes. If the men are going to look at women and then they have problem with their own thinking, they should lower their gaze. They should not look at the woman. The woman is also encouraged to dress modestly. She should not dress, provocatively, that she's going to expose her body where people are going to look at her funny because she has her pride and her dignity. But the women are not going to tempt the men. Women cannot enter into the mind of the man and make him to think any way that he shouldn't think. So Islam encourages the woman to dress modestly, to cover her body and look. She should not expose her body out there. But it also tells the men to lower their gazes.
Excellent point, because as you can see, even in I think this is one of the things that all religions have, even in the United States. When you dress, they say dress according to the occasion. They want you to dress conservatively. When you're going for a job interview, you are going to other areas, such and such and such. And I think you have a point. The Quran says If the man feels that he's tempted or he's not fit, maybe instead of looking, you should also lower your gaze. So I understand that. Any more comments? Okay. Ms. Jalaba, we have agreed that this will be an hour. We'll keep you here for an hour. Will you please give us your parting words before we close? What do you have? What will you have to say to folks like some of us who are not educated into the Quran, Islam, practices of Islam, the dynamics between men and women, and those are outside of the faith?
Okay. Islam is the religion of peace. Islam encourages both male and female to get education, to get the highest, as best as possible knowledge that they can acquire. And the woman is allowed to work. She's allowed to, to hold whatever position that she can hold that wouldn't compromise her family. And the man is encouraged to give the woman all support possible to make sure that she achieves her goals that she sets in life. The woman is also the partner to the man. She should be able to understand, like how all relationship works. And then the same thing with the girls and the boys. If you have your daughter, what you do for your daughter, you should also do for your son. Encourage both of your kids, because what the male can do, the female can also do. So I would tell anybody out there who doesn't know Islam, most of the people that don't send their girls to school or are practicing their culture, they do it because of, what was handed down to them. And some of them, they don't take the time to read or to learn what actual Islam is. And you find people just wanting to be dominant over another. That's just natural in the world. But some of the practices that are being carried out there, it is very, very much un-Islamic. It's not Islam. That's what I have to say to people out there.
Thank you very much for appearing on our show. As you can see, Ms. Jalaba is well versed. She will be back to educate us on the social dynamics between male and female. We'll be talking about relationships. We'll be talking about thoughts and thinking thoughts. So, Ms. Jalaba, thank you very much. And as we close for the day, we want to actually say kudos to the folks in the Southeast. That place is beautiful, especially the Grand Crew, the islands, the beaches, the water, the quality of the sand, the quality of the water, the peacefulness of the people. I saw the president in Grand Crew in Town. I saw no security. I saw no police. I saw no guns. The folks were in total control. The country is at peace. And that's what we want to see in all 15 counties. That's what we want to see all around the world. That's what we want to see projected out of Liberia, that we are peaceful, loving folks. The country is beautiful, and that Liberia is open for business. We want you to visit Town territory, Town in Grand Crew. We want you to visit Maryland County. We want you to visit Grand Bassa County. We want you to visit Lake Piso in Grand Kitma County. We want you to visit the Blue Lake in, I think it's Bomi, in Bomi County. We want you to visit the different falls in Nimba and Bong County. Liberia is beautiful. It is left with us as Liberians to promote everything positive about Liberia. Violence has no place. You want to get rid of George Weah? It's very simple. Show up 2023 and do your homework. And whoever wins is our president. Until then, we see you next Sunday for another edition of On Point. Our friends in cyberspace, we see you next week.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our